friends, welcome back to my channel. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And today I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite reads of 2022. I'm using a new setup. I'm sure you can kind of tell I'm using my husband's photography camera, and it makes me look way more professional than I actually am. So I'm still getting used to it, but I hope you guys enjoy the new quality. And if I'm looking off to the side, it's because I have this monitor on my phone, so I'm just trying to, maybe I should put it away so I don't get it. So I'm going to share with you my favorite reads of the year. It's always the hardest to narrow down your favorite reads, I feel like, at the end of every year. This year I noticed when I was going through my Goodreads I didn't have as many 5 stars as I thought I did, so it made it a little bit easier to narrow it down, but I'm hoping that this year I read a lot more things that I enjoy more, and I'm going to put my priorities into picking books that I think I'm going to like and not just what everybody else is liking. So with further ado, let's get started. These are not going to be in any particular order, so let's just get started. The first one I want to talk about is The Very Secret Society of a Regular Witches. This was just so wholesome and so sweet, and it reminded me a lot of The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is one of my favorites of the year that came out. And this just follows our main character, I think they want to say Micah or Mika, I'm not quite sure, who's a witch, and she gets asked to help at this little like secret school, secret house with these 3 young girls who haven't learned how to master their powers, and she gets to like find her place in her home, and I just really enjoyed this one. Next is The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. I read 2 Kate Quinn books this year, this one and then her last one that came out, The Diamond Eye, and I decided to just pick one of the 2 even though I gave them both 5 stars, and I think I picked this one because I remember feeling like really connected with the characters in this book and really like actively missing them when the story was over. So that's why I picked this one. I mean, all of her books are really good, and she's just an incredible writer, and her historical references and stuff that she brings in that like a lot of us aren't familiar with, I think is always incredible. So next is another historical fiction. I didn't put these in any order, I just kind of stacked them up off to the side. But Angels of the Resistance by Noelle Salazar. This came out really recently, I think November 29th, and I read it right about that time, and I just really enjoyed this one. This was another World War II story. It takes place in the Netherlands, and it follows 2 sisters, and it's kind of their story from before Nazi occupation to during and a little bit after, and I like getting to be a part of that whole journey with some characters instead of just like, you know, highlighting war times and what they did during that time period. I really liked this. They were such strong characters, and I always admire the bravery that these women have during these times in history, and it's based off of a true story. And basically these 2 sisters join the resistance, and they kind of, not the only thing that they do, but one of the main things they do is kind of like seduce Nazis and then kill them. So it was really good though. It's one of those historical fictions that won't just absolutely annihilate you and make you like heartbroken the entire time. So I definitely cried a little bit, but I didn't feel like my heart was actively breaking, which was a nice change of pace for historical fiction. Next is Sometime in Summer by Katrina Leno. I think this is my only young adult. No, another one made it, but this is one of my only young adult books that made my list for the year, and this might actually be younger than young adult. It might be more like higher aged, middle grade. but this was one of my favorite books. I was so in love with this story and the characters and the family dynamics. Basically, we're following our main character, Anna. She just turned 14, I believe, and her parent, 13 maybe? One of those, 13 I want to say. And actually I think it says it right at the beginning, 14. And her parents are getting a divorce, and she's really kind of struggling with the idea of that, and because they have always seemed to her to have like this perfect relationship, and they seem like they just like get to vibe so well together, and she's having a hard time understanding why they are getting divorced. So her and her mom go away for the summer to this little New England town that her aunt has a house there. So her and her mom are spending the summer there, and her dad comes to visit, and there's a little bit of magic, and she makes some friends, and kind of how the whole thing comes together. It's just really delightful, and I just think this is underhyped, and I hope more people pick it up. Next on my stack is The Beautiful Ones by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and this book is incredible. I loved it so much. I listened to the audio of it, and it's it reminds me of The Night Circus, but better in my opinion. It's got like a little bit of magical vibes, it's got romance, it's historical, it's just kind of got a little bit of everything, and I wish more people were talking about it. I think it's so good. It's not very long, and I do recommend the audio for this one, but this is incredible. Next is one of two romances on my list. This was one of the first books I read this year, and it's Duke Actually by Jenny Holiday, and I went into it with really low expectations because I don't always love holiday romances. I feel like they can be really a hit or miss. But this one is the second in a series, and I did not read the first one, and I do not think that you need to. In fact, I've heard that the first one isn't nearly as good, so you really aren't missing much. You kind of get the idea of the first one throughout the telling of this story. But we're following Max and Danny. And Max, it's kind of like a Princess Diaries kind of thing, I feel like Genovia, like they've made up their own little country, and it kind of takes place around these characters that live there, but and it's in New York, and they develop a friendship. And I think what I like so much about this one is like the friendship feels really genuine to me. Like in Friends to Lovers, you can always tell like here's what this is gonna do, they're gonna fall in love, we all know what's gonna happen. But this one, to me, it really felt like the friendship was the priority, and I just feel like that's really beautiful and really genuine, and it made the romance even better. So that's one of my favorite romances this year. Next is Sea of Tranquility. This was in my rating all the books I read halfway through the year, and it still stands. I still love this one. I still think about it all the time. I don't even know how to explain this one. It's very, I want to see if like what the words are people use for it in their reviews. Oh, these are praises for The Glass Hotel, which is her other book. That doesn't really help me, does it? It's just kind of sci-fi meets fantasy, meets like pandemic, futuristic, a little bit of everything, and it's such a fast read. I think I read it in a day when we were camping, and I was like so invested in it, and I know that it's an even better experience if you've read her other books. I've read Station 11, but I haven't read The Glass Hotel, and I know from talking to other people that The Glass Hotel has quite a few references in this one, so I'm going to go back and read The Glass Hotel this year. But Sea of Tranquility is amazing. My other young adult book that made the list is Ground by Tiffany D. Jackson, and I listened to the audio of this, and I really do recommend the audiobook. I don't remember if she narrates it herself. I want to say that she does. which I like when authors narrate themselves, because I feel like you're really getting the experience that they want you to get from the book. They're really like emphasizing what they want emphasized and kind of just giving you like the whole experience. But this book is really heavy, it's really dark, it covers a lot of important topics, but they're hard to swallow at times, but it's incredibly written. It's got such a strong main character, and it's got a good story, and I do recommend this one. Next is one of my thrillers. I think I have 3 over here. Thrillers are always my most read genre, but I feel like they're the least likely to be higher rated, because I feel like thrillers are so specific to the reader and what you enjoy and what you look for when it comes to a thriller. But despite many negative reviews and bad public opinion of this book, I gave it 5 stars. I remember when I finished it, I was reading it in the car. I got done with jury duty, and I was like almost done with it. I was sitting in the room, you know, when you go to jury duty, and I was reading it, and I was almost finished, and then they released us, and so I couldn't finish it. So I got to the car, and I sat in the car, and I was like, I have to finish this. I have to see what's happening. And that is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sagar. I know that a lot of you don't like this. I know, I totally get it, and I understand why you wouldn't like this one. He definitely went outside of his normal box, and I know that the last few releases that he's had have been really hit or miss for a lot of people, and it seems like more miss than hit, unfortunately. But I also think that might just be because his readership is more widespread as he gets, you know, more popular, and his books are more talked about. But I really liked this one. I thought the beginning was really slow. It was kind of boring, and I kept waiting, you know, for something to happen, and then it goes a direction that you don't expect, and I admire him for going for it. I liked it. I loved it, actually, and it's one of my favorites from him. I think it's gonna be in my top 3 from him, and I hope he keeps it up. I hope he goes even harder next time. I just really enjoyed it. My next one is my other romance, and it's The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. I've only read 2 Catherine Centers. This is my second one, and I loved this. It's a sweet romance between our 2 main characters, Hannah and Jack. Hannah is the bodyguard, and he's the movie star, and it's very much gives me like Miss Congeniality kind of vibes, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days kind of vibes, and I just think it's sweet and really wholesome, and I just think if you need like a nice palate cleanser, this would be the perfect book for you. It's just darling. Okay, next is The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. This is my second. I think second from her. I read The Sundown Motel, and I just love her writing. She has a very captivating way of writing her characters, and they're very atmospheric, and like her books are some of the only ones where that I actually feel like uncomfortable, like I'm actually freaked out. Like I can read about, you know, murder and stuff like that all day long and like not feel like I need to look over my shoulder, but her books, the way she just like builds her atmosphere, it always makes me feel like, oh boy, I'm scared, but they're so good, and I really, really liked this one. Okay, next is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I'm so happy to say that I have found an Alice Feeney that I like. I liked his and hers. I thought it was good. I couldn't tell you anything about it now. I don't remember anything, but I remember thinking, oh, this is pretty good, because all of her books that I read before that, and I think I've read all of her books, I hated them. I did not like them at all, but I kept seeing good reviews from my friends for this one, and it sounded it sounded really good, like something I would really enjoy. Isolated thriller on an island with like family drama and stuff, and it goes a very interesting direction. It has a good twist. I really liked it. I liked the atmosphere. I think she did a really good job, and it was I don't want to say less problematic than some of her other books, but I feel that way a little bit. And this one works. I do recommend this one. I gave it 5 stars. Okay, I have 2 left. Okay, next is, this one surprised me how much I loved it, but this is probably in my top 3 books of the year. If I had to pick like a top, 5 or top 3, this would probably be in it, and it's The Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. This is in the Practical Magic series. I read Practical Magic last fall, October season, and I read this one this year, and this is incredible. I mean, Practical Magic is good, but it's not like mind-blowing in my opinion. It's a little bit boring. It's kind of lacking in some elements, but this one, I know it came out quite a few years later, I believe, and it's kind of a prequel to Practical Magic. It follows more of the ants and their story and how they got to where they are and their history, and it's absolutely beautiful. I cried, I laughed, I had such a wonderful experience with this story, and it's just like leaps and bounds different than Practical Magic, but still keeping that like cozy element to it, if that makes sense. I adored this one, and I'm almost afraid to read the next one because this one was just like perfect for me, but I'll probably read the next one next October, keep the tradition going. But this is amazing. I love this so much. And then last, and certainly not least, is Iona Iverson's Rules for Commuting. This was darling. It was so good. It very much gives me like Frederick Bachman vibes with like mixed with like kind of like the flat share. That's just kind of how I correlated in my brain. But this follows Iona and her friends that she makes on her daily commute to the train, and kind of how their lives intersect and they become friends, and just kind of their story together. And I don't know how to explain it. It's just, I love these stories of like everyday people and kind of learning about them and how they connect with each other, and we get to build friendships and we get to be there for it with them, and that is just something really special to me. And those are my favorite books of 2022. I would love to hear what yours were, if you have like a top 3 or like a top 1. I don't like to put myself under the pressure of picking a top book of the year, because I will overthink it and I will just spiral, and it's not anything I want to deal with. But these are mine, and I recommend them all, and I would love to hear what your favorite books of the year were. And do you have any like reading goals for this next year? One of mine, like I said earlier, is to not let myself give into the hype too much, because I've found that I don't necessarily enjoy the same books that everybody is reading, and then I feel like I've wasted part of a good chunk of my reading year trying to give into those hype books, and I just want to read what I want to read. But I hope to see you guys again soon, and have a good day.